Nicole, thank you for joining me today, and thank you to the entire LA Dodgers Foundation for partnering with Children's Defense Fund California as we try to bring more awareness to mental health and the importance of staying mentally healthy. We often hear people talking about getting fit and staying healthy, and usually these people are talking about their physical health. But staying mentally fit can be more challenging than physically fit, especially during times like these. We all know the COVID-19 pandemic compounded our existing, health challenges for families, financial challenges all across the country, and particularly for Black, Brown, Indigenous families of color. Many kids have been displaced from their homes. They've been out of school and their classrooms for a year, out of their sports programs, and many have experienced serious illness and the death of loved ones. Before the pandemic, Nicole, we had 500,000 children in California with identified mental health needs that were going without care each year. So CDF California, we've been pushing for schools to reopen with social emotional supports available, and that children have access to high quality mental health services in schools and in communities. And sports has always been an outlet for children to be physically fit, but also to make those connections with others to support their mental well-being. And the Dodgers Foundation has prioritized mental health tools and the support of young people as it relates to youth programming and your grant making. I'd love to hear more about why the Dodgers Foundation has partnered or prioritized physical, but also mental health for children and youth and through your program.
Oh, Shamika, thanks for having me today. I appreciate having this conversation with you. I will say that the Dodgers Foundation's mission is really to use the power of sport and the power of our brand to improve conditions around homelessness, education, healthcare, and social justice for all Angelenos. And our vision is that everyone should have an opportunity to thrive. So hence our commitment to health and wellness really addresses the comprehensive needs of youth and families that we serve. So as a result of our programs that include resources that prioritize, yes, physical activity, but for purposes of today, the emotional supports that our students, our players, and our youth really need to cope with their stressors in their life, we find it very important to prioritize mental supports for families and for communities throughout Los Angeles. So many of our communities have experienced trauma on so many levels, and so many of their parents have experienced trauma on so many levels. And so when you think about the intergenerational passing down of those things, a lot has happened. A lot has happened that has to do with color of skin. A lot has happened that has to do with financial circumstances, the neighborhoods we live in, and more. And all of this trauma impacts our mental health. So when we think about the last year in particular, prior to the pandemic, young people already face an exceptional amount of emotional trauma that was worrying them about where their next time they would see their friends, when was the next meal they would receive, managing friendships on Zoom, online, all kinds of things. And so when we think about all of that, and we think about how social media has frankly amplified the pressure that a lot of our kids face, the Dodgers Foundation always feels like it's our responsibility to intervene, to provide supports to youth, to families, to our coaches, to many throughout Los Angeles, to really help them to strategize on how to decompress and process their feelings. I always think the reality of the communities we serve, they face generational stigmas associated with getting help. The power of the Dodgers brand is really special, and it's so strong, and it gives us a chance to create a bond with people that they can trust us. And in that trust, they allow us to deliver messaging and provide supports in a pretty unique way, which I think is so important in terms of the power and the strength that we have as a foundation.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I think that being able to hear, your favorite sports player talk about, the stressors that they are all feeling, the rest of us are feeling, being able to see, some of the trainers, over the pandemic, be able to provide outlets on Zoom for physical fitness, but also to talk about, deep breathing and meditation, is so important to be able to, have that translate for communities, especially for children, as they look up to other people and be able to have access. One of the things that we partner on is really around changing the trajectory of youth who've been impacted by the criminal justice system. And when we talk to young people, and even in a recent survey, a poll done by the Brother Son Selves Coalition, and talking with young people, one of the top priorities they talk about having been touched by the criminal justice system or impacted by, interactions with law enforcement has been wanting access to more mental health services. So why has it been so crucial for the Dodgers Foundation to support us in really moving away dollars from incarceration to building up youth development opportunities across Los Angeles?
Yeah, the criminal justice system has a terrifying history of over-incarcerating Black youth and adults along with other people of color. And so that is important to us. Instead of placing kids in detention facilities, we need strategies that can help intervene before we even reach that point. When we assess how much is spent to incarcerate a youth and an adult, these dollars would have such a greater impact if we use them on the preventative end. If we connect more young people with mentors, with resources, with opportunities and support, then we will see a decline in the number of judiciously involved youth. Mm-hmm. Frankly, kids in sports-based youth development programs is a great way to use youth development dollars, right? So when you think about whether it's after-school services, mentoring, sports, in-school services and the like, we have to invest in intervention programs and prevention programs as well. If all the funds are focused on incarceration, we're saying that there's no hope and we don't want to give them a shot. We don't want to see them thrive, which is the way we see it. A youth development program can create the very opportunity that changes a child's trajectory, and we have to realize that. Hence, we have to make the shift, and we know that support from organizations like us is helping to move that in the right direction.
Absolutely. I think, being able to amplify and talk about these issues across multiple spectrums and the ability to have, things that have gone away from our communities. Like you said, sports programs, making sure that, it's the one thing that may keep a young person interested in coming back to school or interested in not getting into other activities. And so, it's really incredibly important. And we're so proud to stand with you all in that work. So I want to talk to you a little bit as a mom. So I know we both have 2 children. Mine are a bit younger. You have 2 boys. I have a boy and a girl who are 6 and 8. And as mothers, I know the daily challenges of raising children, especially during this time, and just wanting to always keep them safe and healthy, and for them to feel supported and loved. And that can be really challenging raising Black children, in this moment. And I've been trying to talk to my children, checking in with them daily, during this pandemic. We also sadly had, our own personal tragedies around COVID this year. And so trying to make sure, that they are, have what they need to, as you said, be supported and thrive. And so as a mother of a teenager and one on the cusp, what are you doing to make sure that your children are staying physically and mentally supported during this time? And how are you addressing it?
Yeah, I think one of the most predominant conversations I've had with friends over the last year is about how it doesn't get easier because their needs shift at different ages that require a new version of ourselves as parents. And I think my husband and I have felt like we're completely changed through this pandemic and the way that we've had to parent our kids and the adjustments that we've had to make. We have learned to listen without intervening and without judgment, which is unique. Children and young adults, they want to be heard. And I think throughout the pandemic, we had to sit down, to your point, we had to talk to our children and listen to our children about the path that they're charting for themselves, right? And about self-sufficiency and how to navigate such a really crazy time. And I think once they are done sharing whatever's on their mind, we have an opportunity to provide our opinions and to provide support. And we have to parent, right? There's rules and there's guidelines and things of that nature. But it's been so important this last year and more to make sure that their physical and emotional needs are addressed. And we make a priority to consistently engage as a unit. So it's easy to disconnect thanks to technology. My boys love video games like most kids, but especially considering all that time they spend on that. We focused on, family nights, whether that's dinner together, whether that's game nights in our backyard, a walk together on the beach, a hike, a movie night. My husband and I have made it a priority to dedicate exclusive time to simply being in the presence of our children, which was difficult before the pandemic because we were also busy with schedules and school and sports and work. Specifically, my teenager is going through all the emotions right now. And don't tell him I told you all. He'll probably never see it, but his emotions can be all over the place right now as a junior in high school, preparing for college, right? And hopefully coming out of the pandemic, having lived the last year in such a challenging way. He's also a young Black man. And Shamika, you hit it on the head, who has seen some things that he can't block out anymore. And it takes more emotional support for him right now. He needs more attention, more hand holding, more dad and son time, more mom and son time these days. He's figuring out who he is, and his confidence can be impacted with one bad day and one bad moment and one bad news story, one bad social post. And so we've had to be very hands-on and very communicative, right? So there's a lot of conversation happening in our house on a very regular basis. We have to check in with our kids regularly. We have to be aware of the fact that all of these things are coming to them at this point, and frankly, manage it and encourage it with them. So it's taken a real team effort. I frankly am excited about the deepened bonds that I think we've created with our two kids over the last 2 years. Even the adjustment for kids back to school. My younger son is back in school full time, and that was a massive adjustment. I mean, he wanted to go back to school. He was so eager to see his friends, but there's a shift there in terms of, okay, wait, now I have to do these things. My routine is different. My body is physically accepting that differently. It's a lot. My youngest son started middle school on Zoom. There are kids who started middle school, new schools on Zoom.
Yeah.
Who started, situations where they graduated from school on Zoom. These are interesting. He had his elementary school graduation on Zoom, and he started his new school on Zoom. So just a lot of explanation, right? And we don't have all the for our kids during this time. So we just have to listen, and we have to be really willing to respond and provide opinions and let them know we're here for them.
No, thank you so much for your insights and sharing what you've learned over this last 2 years of pandemic parenting. And I think, the things that you lifted up, are all of us are feeling. And I think being able to just relate and understand that you said listening, being present, making sure they're feeling heard, and just having a lot of grace, because you're right, it's been a lot for parents, but it's also been a lot for children. And I think we often leave them out of the conversation when we talk about the impacts of the pandemic, other than schooling, but the impacts of what it's had on their physical and mental health, and how we can be there and be supportive. And so thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Thank you to the LA Dodgers Foundation. We are so happy to have your leadership there. And thank you for joining us in this effort to raise awareness around the importance of mental health for our young people.
Thank you, Shamika. We're so looking forward to continuing to partner with you.
Fantastic. Have a great day.
You too.